Welcome back to another episode of In Swineversation, Comprehensive Biosecurity with Mark Beaven. Welcome to the program, Mark.
Thanks, Jim. It's great to be here.
So EthoGuard, you're an upstart Canadian company bringing biosecurity to the forefront. You've opened a biosecurity center of excellence in Blyth, Ontario. So the Center of Excellence has a great story behind it. It's more than just an office or a warehouse, and soon to be research center and podcast studio as well. So before we get to you and your company, EthoGuard, talk to me about this Biosecurity Center of Excellence. I think this is great news for the industry, bringing these kind of educational platforms.
Right. Yeah, no, we're blessed to have a facility like no other. The history of the facility was built approximately about 10 years ago, and 10, 15 years ago. It was originally built as an emergency services training center. The idea was the local fire department in Blyth in North Huron, they needed a new fire hall, so they sought some government funding, and they wanted more than just a fire hall. They built this emergency services training center, and the idea was to bring local volunteer fire departments into the area to get trained. Shortly thereafter, the Ontario Fire Marshal did the same thing up in Aurelia, I believe it was, and so the need for it never really took off. So it's passed down a couple times since then. And EthoGuard, we were very fortunate to secure the facility last spring, and it's a phenomenal facility. So we have about 15,000 square feet, and it's a modern building. We have use it as, of course, as our warehouse and our administration and our office setting. But in addition to that, it has classrooms, it has training rooms. We're actually, as you mentioned about the podcast, we have a virtual studio that we've constructed inside the facility. We're hoping to do a lot of research and development, and we are actually using it for research and development right now. We can actually bring in a complete live haul truck and trailer, for example, and look at the different ways of cleaning and disinfecting, a live haul transport trailer. And see if there is better ways of doing it. Is there better products or technologies out there to do it? And so we're pretty excited about it. It's located, as you mentioned, in Blyth, Ontario, which is center of Huron County, right in the middle of prime agricultural area. So while we're a little bit off the beaten track in terms of city area, we feel we're in a great position to be in. So we're pretty excited about it. We're investing a lot into it, in terms of we're looking at building a laboratory in there as well to continue some of the research and development. So we're pretty excited about it.
So could this also be a learning center for agriculture and tourists?
Yeah. So that's one thing we are definitely looking at. For example, we provide the center free of charge to any agricultural group that wants to use it. If an organization wants to have a bunch of their members or clients or customers in for a meeting, there's meeting space there available. So yeah, we'd like to use it for its full potential, and definitely education, whether it be biosecurity or other segments of the agricultural industry. We think that it definitely can be used for that.
Any other reason why you're creating this? This will be kind of a world-class facility and office.
So, and EthoGuard itself, the vision for EthoGuard is much bigger than just simply providing products to the industry that help with biosecurity. We're investing into the future, and so yeah, we're not satisfied with just simply selling widgets, as they say. We want to do more for the industry. We think that there's a lot of potential in some of the up and coming technologies that are out there to really make a difference and improve biosecurity right across the country and around the world, for that matter. So that's why we're doing this.
So let's backtrack to you a little bit, Mark. What's your background? How did you start EthoGuard? What was the vision?
Right. So I guess it's 25 years or maybe even more now that I've been in the agricultural industry. Started out in the poultry industry. Some of the people in the poultry industry may remember me from my time at Egg Farmers of Ontario. I was director of operations for EFO, and in that regard, was responsible for the on-farm food safety programs, biosecurity, the emergency response programs and initiatives, and so yeah, it really gave me a good grounding, a good base of knowledge and information and experience in the agricultural sector. In 2008, I went to the national scene and became the executive director of the Canadian Animal Health Coalition. The coalition was made up of a number of the national livestock and poultry groups that we did research projects in farmed animal health. And I was there for 10 years and thoroughly enjoyed the experience. And again, learned a lot, made a lot of connections. And one of the things about agriculture is, as you know, and everybody else in the industry probably knows, it's all about relationships. And so meeting a lot of people from across the country in the different segments, the different sectors, I think is a really good thing to have when you're trying to promote biosecurity. So while I was at the coalition, I had reason to hear about accelerated hydrogen peroxide, or at the time, the brand name of the technology was Excel. And this is a disinfectant technology that was extremely prevalent in the human health world, but we in agriculture had not seen it. And I couldn't understand why. And so I took it upon myself to introduce the technology to agriculture. Myself and a colleague of mine, Chris Vanderkoy, we formed a little company called Farm Guard Products, and we started introducing AHP to the ag sector, and it started taking off. I then went into the then master distributor of the technology, and then shortly, about a year and a half ago, my company EthoGuard, we actually took on that role as the master distributor for the Canadian agricultural sector, for Prevail now it's called. And in starting EthoGuard, though, I wanted to get away from just simply being, the Excel guy. There's much more to biosecurity than simply just disinfectant. So we felt that having the Prevail disinfectant line, which we believe is the #1 disinfectant technology in the world when it comes to its ability to clean and disinfect, especially in agricultural settings. We wanted to use use it to also relay some other initiatives. So EthoGuard is this complete, comprehensive biosecurity company for agriculture. So we sell, a number of different products. Of course, Prevail disinfectant is our #1, our marquee product. But we also supply cleaning and disinfection equipment, PPE. We provide a number of different services for agriculture, whether it be biosecurity training, assessments, and planning. And in addition to that, we also have emergency response services. We're really seeing the need for those in the right now, currently, with the high path avian influenza cases that we're having. So in addition to all those services, we're also investing for the future. As I mentioned, we're developing this biosecurity center of excellence, but in addition, we're constantly looking out, 10 and 20 years and doing research and development and looking for different technologies that may be in other segments, maybe in the human health world or the environmental world. And we're bringing them, is there a use case for them here in agriculture? And so we're pretty excited about some of the different projects that we're working on in that realm as well.
So we talked about this before, Mark, and you touched on it just a moment ago about the emergency response plan. So I think that is a really key, unique idea. How did you come up with this?
So first of all, when I was at Egg Farmers of Ontario, was one of the, the files that I was in charge of, was, trying to have the industry prepared for an emergency. So, when disaster strikes and the stress, the aggravation, and that producers feel, when they have one of these emergencies, whether it be, as I said, a high path AI or avian influenza case, or God forbid, an African swine fever, arrives in Canada, or foot and mouth. I mean, the stress is unbelievable. So industry needs to be there to assist and to take leadership roles wherever they can to assist, the frontline producers. And then when I went to the coalition, one of the roles I was very fortunate to have was I sat on the Canadian Veterinary Reserve Advisory Board. And for those that don't know, the CVR, the Canadian Veterinary Reserve, is this a large number of veterinarians across the country have signed on to the CVR and said that in the case of an emergency, they would be, potentially available to assist. So if the Red River floods in Manitoba, and literally thousands of acres are flooded out, and there's a number of livestock casualties or in distress, vets may be called through the CVR to assist. So when I began creating this vision for EthoGuard, I was kind of combining all these different experiences that I'd had, and we've created an agricultural emergency reserve. Rural Ontario, as I'm sure as other rural areas across the country, we all know that volunteer fire departments are the backbone of emergency response efforts in rural Ontario or rural Canada. And we see this as being kind of a similar effort. So EthoGuard has made the investment in terms of equipment and our own staff and training, as well as building this emergency reserve. And we feel that's the best approach. So this way you get actual people helping farmers that have a background in agriculture. We're not taking urban, emergency response companies and putting them into an ag setting where there may be some challenges. We're actually taking some individuals that have that farming background. They know, how to handle livestock, that sort of thing. And we're utilizing their services, their experience in dealing with these emergencies. So, so EthoGuard itself, we have the full capability to deal with, from depopulation and disposal, and even partnering with some of our barn washing companies, doing the cleaning and disinfection after an emergency outbreak, for example, disease outbreak, for example.
So you're in Ottawa right now at the African Swine Fever Executive Management Meeting. I know you took a break to meet with us. Quick snapshot of this conference so far.
Right. So ASF, African Swine Fever, is knocking on the door, so to speak. Thankfully, to date, Canada and the U.S., we've been protected from it. But I think there's a feeling within industry that it's not a question of if, but when ASF arrives into our midst. So very high level efforts are taking place in terms of building a strategy. How do we prevent ASF from hitting our shores, and B, how do we deal with it if it does hit here? There's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of work to do, and it's great to see that government, both federal and provincial groups are taking the lead, as well as industry, as well as the Canadian Pork Council and others that are really leading the charge in developing a strategy on dealing with ASF.
So you touched on, you guys are more than just products, but you've also got some key disinfectant products that are relevant to customers. Anything else to touch on that point, Mark?
So we've, as I've mentioned, Prevail disinfectant is our marquee product. We don't carry any other disinfectant or cleaner other than Prevail. We believe it is absolutely the best when you really get into the science of the disinfectant, side of things, there's nothing that comes close to its ability to clean and disinfect in the presence of organic material. There's been like Iowa State University's done research on this, and it truly is like a leader when it comes to that kind of capability. It's the contact time, and then also very importantly, it's human health safety aspect of it. It's traditional chemistries out there are very nasty, and fortunately Prevail is very safe to use that way, and that's very important to us at EcoGuard. We believe in a kind of a One Health approach to everything we do, so that so human health and animal health and environmental health are all very equally important. But in addition to that, is we have a number of different other products, as I said, PPE and cleaning equipment. We're big believers in foaming, for example. So we have a complete line of foaming equipment, whether it be high pressure, very strong stainless steel foaming systems, to portable, foamers. We are also getting into, as I said, on the research and development side. We're looking at a number of new exciting technologies that we think have a definite role to play on the biosecurity and cleaning and disinfection. We're working with one company, for example, and we hope to have an agreement here very shortly, and some very exciting news in terms of some of the research that's going on in that realm.
You have a biosecurity philosophy, or at least what's one thing producers should be aware of?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that we believe in is unfortunately there's no such thing as risk elimination. It's all about risk reduction, and so we take steps to really reduce the risk of of an infection coming onto your premise. And so everything that a farmer producer can do helps in that regard. We also believe in making any of the protocols, any of the steps that we can do, make them easy to follow. I mean, we can build all kinds of protocols for a farmer to follow, but if they're difficult or challenging to follow, they're not going to implement them. So we're very big on training. We work with our clients to build farm specific training programs for their staff, and we implement some like through the equipment, we can make it very easy and foolproof to implement these different protocols. So that's the kind of way that we operate. We try and make it as easy as possible to implement these different biosecurity protocols, and realizing that they all work together to gather the greatest reduction in risk of any pathogen and introduction. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, this One Health approach is very important to us. That we're big believers in making sure that everything you're doing, you have to realize that it affects animal health and human health and environmental health. And so, I mean, it's comforting to see some of the larger agricultural companies or producers and integrators out there that are promoting a One Health approach, promoting environmental sustainability or human health and animal welfare and health as well. And so now they need to start implementing the specific tasks or the specific protocols that meet those guidelines. So for example, again, back to disinfection, what disinfectant are you using? Is a lot of the ones out there are, as I said, they have environmental hazards. There's human health concerns, whether it's you need respirators and gloves and goggles, that kind of stuff. If you're taking that One Health approach, use a disinfectant that is very, very effective, but is also very safe to use. That's what One Health means.
So I think sometimes the little things matter, and you've had success with this at a recent trade show. So the National Poultry Show in London, Ontario, you got great attention because of a chicken costume. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, Brock the chicken. You have to say it, Brock. That's his name. Um, yeah, the chicken costume was a big hit. One of the and in all seriousness, I mean, one of the keys of being in business is getting your message out there. I mean, trying to broadcast. We have the greatest products and the greatest services available, but if nobody knows about you, we're not doing our job to improve the Canadian biosecurity efforts. And so we're always looking for innovative and fun ways of getting our message out. I'm very blessed to have a great team behind me. And Maggie Spear, our marketing coordinator, her energy is contagious, and it was her idea to. We've got some EthoGuard mascots, and Brock was introduced at the National Poultry Show in London, and he was a huge hit, and it did gather us some attention. We've actually had international companies reach out and ask us where we got the chicken suit from, because they want to do similar efforts. So, stay tuned, because there's others coming out. Social media is a big thing, of course, in today's marketing world, and we've got Hollywood Hammy. He'll be front and center at the Pork Congress, for example, in Stratford in June. And so, again, anything like that we can generate some publicity and also have a little bit of fun, because we do this for day to day for a living, and it's all right to smile once in a while, and we're all in favor of it. So yeah, the chicken suit was quite interesting.
You had so much success, you're going to wrap that into the Ontario Pork Congress with Holiday Hammy. Is that?
That's
Yeah.
correct, and at the same time, we're hoping to have a couple, at least, as I said, one announcement of some new things that we're working on, and we'll continue driving that message of biosecurity matters, and helping farmers and producers right across the country improving their biosecurity. That's our role.
The final question, you have a really cool virtual biosecurity simulator, which will be on site at the Center of Excellence. How did this come about, and what can people expect?
Right. So again, it serves two purposes. I mean, we were at the Canadian Outdoor Farm Show back in September, and we're constantly always trying to look for different ways of attracting attention, and trying to get people to meet with us, and so we were trying to come up with what other innovative ways can we attract attention in a trade show setting. So we had the chicken suit, but our one of our team members, Jared Larder, he's a young fella, very energetic as well, and he's kind of taken the role of innovations lead. So the younger generation, they know all about this kind of stuff, and so he worked with a gentleman out of Connecticut, Ethan Green, Greenlight Labs, and they developed a virtual reality biosecurity simulator. And basically, you put the headset on, and you are immersed into a broiler barn, and you foam on Prevail. And we use this as an attractant to introduce the idea of Prevail, but also foaming and disinfecting and that sort of thing, coverage area. We introduce that to attendees that want to come into our booth at trade shows. But we see there's much more opportunity for virtual reality. So we're looking at developing, for example, a training simulator where what's the proper way of entering a barn? What steps, what protocol steps do we need to do going into a barn? And for those like me, up until 6 months ago, I guess it was, who have never had a virtual reality headset on, it's amazing experience. I mean, when you put that thing on, you are truly, yeah, you're there, and it really makes it a real life situation. So, watching a 2D video is great, but when you put the VR headset on, it just makes it so much more vivid and so much more real life. So so we're spending some resources on that kind of, training and educational development technology.
It's really innovative, Mark. Keep up the
Thank you.
good work, and thanks for joining us on InSwineversation.
Thanks very much, Jim, and yeah, take care.